on that. So with that being said, let's jump into it real quick with the Shrine Bowl information and the draft. So you had Shrine Bowl practice all week, right? And then, of course, you had the game last night. Lo and behold, we had a Wisconsin boy show up and show out in Riger. If I'm saying, is it Rieger or Riger? You guys help me with the chat. He wasn't high on our board. I'll show you. He's still not extremely high on our board, but it's important to know who stood out in these All-Star games, because not that I care that much, but it's obvious that GMs and scouts, they care a lot about that. How do they rise to the occasion or don't rise to the occasion, right? With the lights on and all the scouts in house, there's something to be said for that, for sure. So everybody excited about him being a Wisconsin guy, obviously. So here we go. This was according to Chad Reuter over on NFL.com. All right. And here is what he had to say in terms of the players that stood out. We have 8 players, all right, 8 standouts on this list. First one is Shad Banks, linebacker out of UTSA. All right, his draft status, obviously, he's declared he's a senior. Performance, Banks was a special team standout early, recording stops on the first 2 kickoffs. Defensively, he showed elite lateral movement, slipping blocks to swallow ball carriers at the line and breaking up a key pass in the end zone. His injury history, Banks missed 2 games during the 2025 season due to an undisclosed minor injury, though he returned to finish the year at full strength. So obviously, seems like he's fairly healthy. He shined yesterday. Now, where did Shad Banks fall on our draft board? I'm going to explain how this works, okay, for those of you who are new to the draft board. On the far left, and I know it's hard for you guys to read this. Again, you can get closer to your screen, or you can find this over on patreon.com/Packer Fan Total Access, where we've got our draft board for all of you guys and gals to check out. So essentially what you've got, he's ranked 443rd, okay? You're going, how many prospects are on this board? We have 449 on the board, so he's toward the bottom. However, he flashed, so he gets the 5-point bonus. You'll notice this -5 right here. Low number of wins on this board, all right? The consensus big board had him at 750. He was 395th graded linebacker according to PFF, and he was 523rd in the 2023 season, okay? So those numbers shake out with the 5-point bonus. His score is a 551. So am I interested in him? No, but we got to mention all these players that flashed, all 8 of these players, according to Chad Reuter, that really flashed. Next on the list, Dean Connors, running back out of Houston, okay? He was a senior as well. With his performance, he showed a versatile skill set with a great mix of power and quickness. He was effective as a pass catcher out of the backfield and scored the West's first touchdown with a sharp cutback move. Injury history, no significant injuries reported during his collegiate career. So you're talking about a guy who's healthy, right? And I see the super chat there, Mike. Appreciate you, buddy. We'll hit it at the end of this segment here, man. Thank you so much. So he's coming in at the 293 spot. There's a 1-spot placeholder there if you're wondering why it says 294 and I'm saying 293. So Dean Connors, 293 out of Houston, running back, obviously. In 2023, he was the 107th graded running back. 24, he dropped to 288. 25, he jumped back up to 158. He was 257 on the PFF big board. He was 370 on the consensus big board. You see the 5-point bonus, giving him a score of 231. So he's going to fall in here at the 293 spot. Again, running back Dean Connors out of Houston. Next, you got Garrett DeJorio, if I'm saying that correctly, offensive tackle out of UCLA. Another senior. Performance, a, quote, mauler in the run game. DeJorio solidified the right side of the line. While he may move to guard in the NFL due to his 32 3/4-inch arm length, his movement skills when pulling across a formation impressed scouts. Injury history, suffered a leg injury / muscle spasms during a game against Nebraska in November 25 that caused him to miss time, but he was able to return for the season finale. So no huge injury issues there, right? He falls in the 305th spot on our PTA big board. We've got him listed as a guard because of the arm length. That may change by the time we get to the draft and through the draft process. 318th in 2023 at his position, 117th in 2024, 130th in 25. PFF big board had him at 314. The consensus big board had him at 419. We've got him with a score of 240 after the 5-point bonus from the East-West Shrine game that he excelled at. So again, they've got him anywhere from 314 to 419. We're saying he's worthy of the 240th pick, although he's sitting in the 305th spot. That makes sense. So keep an eye on Garrett DeJorio if he ends up going to the combine and see how he measures out. Next, we got an Iowa kid. I know we got a lot of Iowa fans that watch the show along with Wisconsin Badger fans. How cool was it the East-West Shrine game The offensive MVP was from Iowa. The defensive MVP was from Wisconsin. Pretty darn cool. Soder says the UCLA guy sounds like he's a Ryan clone. He really does, Soder. Really does. It's a great comp there, man. Mark Gronowski, quarterback from Iowa. He was the East-West Shrine Bowl offensive MVP. Obviously, he was a senior performance. He earned offensive MVP honors. The former South Dakota State star looked poised in the pocket, showing the ability to make throws on the move and delivering a key block to spring Dean Connors for a touchdown. We got a quarterback out there blocking. My God. Injury history: suffered a major injury, knee injury, an ACL in the 2021 FCS Spring National Championship game, which sidelined him for the entire 2021 fall season. He also dealt with a minor knee tweak in September of 2025, but did not miss significant time. So you got to really do your due diligence, do the homework on the knee injury that occurred back there in 2021. But based off how he played in this game, I'd say he's all right. Now, he gets an 8-point bonus because he won the MVP award. We'll do the same thing with the Senior Bowl, okay? So he falls in the 160 spot. So he's 160th on our board. Why? PFF grades: 23, he was 4th at his position. 24, he was 49th at his position. 25, he was 59th at his position. The PFF Big Board had him at 293. The Consensus Big Board had him at 311. We got an 8-point bonus as well. Guys, the grade we've got on him final is 135.2. What that's saying is he's worthy of the 135th pick. Although we've got him in the 160 spot, you'll see a differential the longer you get into the draft process and down the list here. But we've got him significantly higher than the Consensus Big Board and the PFF Big Board. If he's available with the 7th round pick, and I know nobody's overly excited about drafting a quarterback, but if he's available with like a 6th or a 7th round pick and we got a 135.2 grade on him, you can see how that'd be a great value pick. Who knows? Who knows, right? And he's a guy who's had success. Obviously, when the lights came on at the East-West Shrine game, and I want to be very, very clear, East-West Shrine is nowhere near the Senior Bowl. It's kind of the minor league version of the Senior Bowl, if you will, right? But it still matters. So I want to be clear there. I put a lot more stock in the Senior Bowl than obviously I do in the Shrine Bowl. But nonetheless, look out for Mark Gronowski throughout the rest of the process, the pro days, the combine. He may be one that starts to rise on the boards a little bit. We'll see if Consensus Big Board and them change their mind. If you're wondering, why do I have those numbers in early? That's why. What these guys will do on the Consensus Big Boards and everybody doing their big boards, all of a sudden you'll get the All-Star game and then you get the combine and they jump these guys up 100 spots. And it's like, I want to know how everybody felt about them at the end of the season. I don't want to know how they felt after all the hype train got going. Right? I want to know, how did we feel? College football wrapped up, into the season, fresh on everybody's mind. What did the tape show? What did they put out there during the college football season? And then we'll control the bonuses. We'll give bonuses for RAS and athletic build and profile, right? We'll give bonuses for the All-Star games. We'll give bonuses from Greg Cosell. Also, not in this board yet, we've got Daniel Jeremiah's top 50, but we don't have his entire list. We don't have Dane Brugler's entire list. We don't have all of Walter Football's entire list, which Walter Football is going to be replacing the 33rd team for us this year unless we decide to go a different route. Right now, that's the placeholder. That's going to adjust this list as well. So we get some late effect, but I wanted to make sure the Consensus Big Board, the PFF Big Board, all that information went in as early as possible so it's not as polluted with the hype train that comes along later. And again, you'll get that hype train with your DJs, with your Dane Bruglers, and so on and so forth. Okay, so that's how we roll there. Again, look for Mark Gronowski to continue to rise. Now, here we go. Hopefully, I don't butcher the name. I heard people say Rieger. I heard people say Rieger. I'm going to say Rieger here. You guys let me know if I got it wrong. Mason Rieger, edge defender out of Wisconsin. How do you pronounce it? Somebody help me in the chat so I don't screw it up anymore, okay? Edge defender out of Wisconsin. He was your defensive MVP. He was a senior as well. Performance, he was named the game's defensive MVP after a dominant 3-sack performance, all right? He's closing speed was the story of the night as he consistently beat tackles and forced a strip sack in the third quarter. Guys, 3 sacks during an All-Star game? Man, that's something, right? So it is Rieger. Thank you so much, Kyle. Appreciate you, buddy. That's what I wanted to say initially, and somebody said, no, it's Rieger. So appreciate you, man. So Mason Rieger here, 3 sacks on the day. Now, you hear that and go, oh, this dude might be a stud, right? Look at where he's on our board, though, where it's not like he's toward the top, right? We've got him sitting in the 210 spot, all right? He was the 89th at his position, edge defender in 23. We did not have a score for him in 24. I don't know if he was hurt that year or what. Actually, let's fall back. That's probably what we got right here. Injury history. Missed the entire 2024 season following the knee injury. All right. During his rehab in early 2025, he underwent a follow-up procedure to have a metal rod inserted into his shin to aid recovery before returning for the 25 season. So this dude's tougher than nails, but he's got a metal rod in his leg too. We got to be aware of that, right? That's something that's definitely not going to help his stock. But with Mason Reiger, you have got 89 in this position, no grade in 24 because of the knee injury, and then he got better in 25, ranking 64th at the edge position amongst all other college football players. And that includes over 400 teams, by the way. Okay. 244th on the PFF big board. He was 329 on the consensus big board. He got an 8-point bonus for getting defensive MVP. So his grade comes at a 173.5. So he's worthy of the 173rd pick. However, he's sitting in the 210 spot on our big board. That's one to watch for. Late round guy. Now, do you need another edge defender? Well, if you move on from Rashawn Gary and you move on from Kingsley Enagbare, I could justify making a pick like this late in the draft, right? I would be okay with that. Now, again, Mike Berry, you knucklehead. Again, the injury is going to matter, right? Like we got to know exactly, get your doctor's hands on that knee and see, all right, is that rod? What do we got here? Go through you may just kind of try to request his injury information, right? The surgery, how everything went, stuff like that. Mike Berry says, go Rusty Undercarriage. As you guys know, Rusty Undercarriage is on this list somewhere. I moved him around a little bit so you guys can go find him again. If you're wondering who Rusty Undercarriage is, he's a long snapper from Fart Box Technical College. So you guys can go find him here. So again, Mason Reiger in the 210 spot, Wisconsin guy. Love to see it. Next on the list, Eric Rivers, wide receiver / kick returner from Georgia Tech. Despite not being the largest receiver, Rivers was the most reliable target on the field. He showcased strong hands and blazer speed, particularly on the game-winning drive as a kick returner. Injury history: he missed the 22 season at Memphis due to a torn labrum in his shoulder. He also missed the 25 spring session at Georgia Tech while recovering from an injury to his other shoulder. So we got shoulder issues there, something to monitor, right? He's currently in the 150 spot on our PTA big board. Positional rankings: starting in 23, 619, 29, then drops back to 211. He's 128 on the PFF big board, 157 on the consensus big board. We got a 126.3 grade on him. He's sitting in the 150 spot for us there. All right. So again, that is Eric Rivers, wide receiver / kick returner out of Georgia Tech. And then you got Trey Smack. We got our first kicker here. Chad Reuter said he made the play of the night for the Specials with a 57-yard field goal that had plenty of distance and height. He also showed his athleticism by making a solo tackle on a kickoff return. Injury history: he missed the first half of his freshman season in 22 due to an undisclosed injury. When we put this information in, guys, going by offensive PFF grade, all right, for kickers, he was 32nd at his position. He's 290 on the consensus big board. The PFF big board did not have him on the board. We give him the 5-point bonus. His grade is a 156. All right. That puts him at 187 on our big board. This may end up being one of, if not the top kickers taken if one is drafted. Now, people hearing my voice, yeah, Joseph got all excited. He said, we didn't even have to super chat when we got kicker talk. Yes, sir. So here's the problem with this, guys. If I were to say, do you draft a kicker? There's going to be people go, you've lost your damn mind, right? But most of those are the same people that are upset when we have kickers miss kicks. When we have special teams gaps, specifically from the kicker position, it's like we don't want to allocate resources to fixing the position, but we want to complain and act like there's an easy fix to it, right? Now, let's see what the chat says. Jen says draft him already, right? Now, here's the problem, Jen. If we draft him, I'm trying to think, who was the guy that the 49ers drafted a few years ago, if you guys will remember. They drafted a kicker, and he fell flat on his face. Trying to think of who it was. Was it what Moody was it? What Bay? Anyway, you can swing and miss on these. Yeah, Moody, there it is. So I guess I did get it right. Thank you, Chris. Yeah, that's the thing. Like, if you use a draft pick on one, it's not just so much, oh crap, we missed on him. Oh well, let's move on. But we know how these GMs are. If you draft one and he struggles in year one, well, maybe he'll put it together in year two. Maybe he'll put it together in year three. And we're going through this constant problem. Go get me a veteran kicker, the best on the market, right? Now, maybe that ends up being Brandon McManus. I know people hate to hear that. Guys, his first year in Green Bay, 95% field goal percentage. Last year, it dipped all the way down to 80, I think. What are you going to get next year with McManus? If you move on from McManus, there's a realistic chance that McManus ends up going to another team and goes back to that 95%. And then what if we're stuck with a rookie that's struggling like Carlson, So it's tough, man. I just want to point out that, he sits there in the 186 spot or 187 spot on our board as it sits right now, he being Trey Smack out of Florida. But, man, those guys can struggle once they hit the league. And I think this is the last one. Yeah, last one here. Wesley Williams, edge defender from Duke. Performance, he proved his versatility by defending the run just as effectively as the pass. He thwarted a screen pass on the final play of the first quarter with his elite hustle. He earned multiple pressures from both the edge and interior positions. Kind of sound like a little Baron Sorrell kicking inside, right? Capped his night with a strip sack in the end zone that resulted in a touchdown. So had a pretty good night there. Injury history, no major football-related injuries reported during his time at Duke. He's in the 347 spot on our big board. Mainly because his PFF rankings at his position. The consensus big board had him at 260. We gave him a 5-point bonus. He has a 272 grade. So even though he's that far down, he is worthy of 272nd on our board in terms of the grade. Again, that is Wesley Williams, edge defender out of Duke. So those are your players that flashed according to Chad Reuter, and a little extra breakdown. Again, shout out to Reiger out of Wisconsin, obviously having a great game there at the edge spot, and then Gronowski, quarterback out of Iowa. So I'm curious to know what you guys think. If you're watching this video back later, let us know in the comments. How do you feel about these players? Are they rising on boards with how they played at the Shrine Bowl? Is there somebody on that list you'd like to draft? Do you think that's realistic where we've got them ranked on our board? We want to hear from you. Make sure you hit like, subscribe, click the bell icon so we see you in here in the future. All right, final segment, I guess you could say, topic here, guys. This is going to get interesting because I don't know. I haven't checked the poll question yet. I don't know how people were voting. I woke up this morning and had several comments of people saying Bill Belichick's a cheater. He doesn't belong in the Hall of Fame. I feel like that's a slippery slope. I really do. We had a little bit of a conversation in our Patreon group this morning about it, and I just named off a few things that kind of came to mind in terms of people who have been accused of cheating in the past. Man, I feel like this is a slippery slope, okay, that we're going down here in terms of if we just decide Bill Belichick doesn't belong in the Hall of Fame because of Deflategate, because of Spygate, all that stuff, right? But let's kind of get it kicked off where it all started. So Ari Miroff tweeted this out from the ESPN report. Bill Polian was a vocal figure in the Hall of Fame deliberations involving Bill Belichick, with Spygate and Deflategate coming up among voters during discussions. Per a voter, so we got a source that actually voted on this Bill Belichick into the Hall of Fame or not thing, which, by the way, if you haven't heard, first ballot Bill Belichick is not going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer, which is wild to think about. But again, we'll get to the poll question here in a second. Make sure you guys get your vote in, okay? The poll question is already up here on YouTube and X. So Bill Polian was a vocal figure, blah, 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 with the discussions. Per a voter who spoke anonymously, all right, Polian, the former Bills and Colts GM and longtime Patriots rival, told some voters he believed Belichick should, quote, wait a year, end of quote, as penance for Spygate. So this gets leaked out, and Ari Miroff, I think everybody on Twitter for the most part is making their opinion known. It seems like the large majority of the media people like that are tweeting this stuff out are like, what are we doing? They're totally against, like, Bill Belichick should be a first ballot Hall of Famer, right? And Ari had tweeted out before, this is a terrible look for the Pro Football Hall of Fame. No other way to say it. Now, I see people saying Roger Goodell should step in and this and that. Guys, understand the Pro Football Hall of Fame is separate from the NFL. Now, I'm sure the NFL helps fund and all that, and we know they're really the only pro league that's relevant right now. But the Pro Football Hall of Fame, they don't answer to Roger Goodell, right? They're their own entity. So just understand that. And I had to do a little research on that. I think it was last year to understand. Now, we got other people chiming in here. Diana Rossini tweeted out As one current head coach put it, quote, if you can't take your personal emotion out of this, then you shouldn't be a voter. And then obviously Diana Rossini tweeted this out. At a time when football leans harder than ever into analytics, maybe it's time Hall of Fame voting does the same. If this were strictly about numbers, the conversation would be over. Bill Belichick won 6 Super Bowls. No one else has done that. Analytics would say he's an automatic entry, yet here we are. So again, it's all about emotion, right? That's essentially what we're coming down to is you've got people that don't like Bill Belichick and they do not think he should be in the Hall of Fame. That's essentially what we're talking about here, right? Now, with all the stuff that the alleged cheating, right? The Deflate Gate, the Spy Gate, and everything. I've thrown this up, and these are just random thoughts that came to me this morning as I was actually one of them came. I think Chewy actually mentioned one as well. But the first thing that comes to mind for me with Deflate Gate, you guys remember when this happened? Aaron Rodgers was very vocal. Now, I want you to think about the slippery slope we're heading down here. Aaron Rodgers said, well, first of all, let's key in on Tom Brady. Does this mean Tom Brady doesn't get in first ballot? Because Bill Belichick had nothing to do with the deflated footballs. That was supposedly Tom Brady. Belichick didn't get suspended for that. Belichick knew nothing about the deflated footballs. It was Tom Brady and the trainer evidently having air taken out of the footballs. Now, this is still not a slam dunk, by the way. They were playing in a cold weather game. Balls, you could take those balls, put them outside for an hour, right? And then measure them, which they measured them at the end of the game, right? If it's a cold weather game, the ball's going to lose a little bit of air pressure. Now, to the point that they did, I don't know. I'm not a scientist, right? However, I don't even know if scientist would be the right term there. Aerologist. What would you call it, guys? Deflatologist. I don't know. Anyway, put that to the side. Belichick didn't have anything to do with deflating the footballs. If Tom Brady preferred the balls be less deflated, so here's what you got to, if we're doing this, guys, Tom Brady is not a first ballot Hall of Famer. That's what you're saying. That's a precedent you're setting, right? Now, here's the other thing. The years of Deflategate and the deflated football, let's throw those out the window. Okay, let's say you can't count those now then. He's still got 4 Super Bowls. What the hell are we doing? So this all comes back to, and this is just my opinion. I'm not saying I'm right and anybody else is wrong, but this is coming back to now that personal vendetta that Diana Rossini was talking about here, right? So if you can't remove your emotions from the voting process, you know what this reminds me of? Remember Aaron Rodgers, the MVP year, when Hub Arkush allegedly said that he was not going to vote Aaron in because of his stance on vaccines? It's like, okay. And of course, Aaron, we need to get that soundbite of him saying he's an absolute bum, right? Now, Aaron went on to win the MVP anyway, but that really kind of pulled the curtain back a little bit with some of this voting. Like, what? You're going to say because he has a different stance on vaccination that should determine whether he should be the MVP or not, or shouldn't be the MVP, I should say? That's wild. That really was mind-boggling to me. Now, let's go back to the Deflategate. When this all came out with Deflategate, do you guys know what Aaron Rodgers said? Pausing for dramatic effect. Aaron Rodgers said, yes, I always have our guys overinflate the football and see if we can get it to pass by unnoticed, because I've got large hands, and the tighter the football, the tighter the spiral, you can throw the ball a lot better, right? And I see the super chats. Thank you, guys. We're going to hit them at the end here. Thank y'all so much. So does that mean Aaron Rodgers shouldn't be a first ballot Hall of Famer? I'm going to take a sip here for just y'all think about that for a second. Aaron Rodgers basically said, I have our guys overinflate the footballs. I love that he had the huevos to come out in public and say that, kind of in defense of Tom Brady. Like, what are we doing here? Everybody has their preference with the footballs, right? Now, it becomes, well, the trainer took the balls into the bathroom out of camera shot, and they think they deflated them in there and this and that. If the Colts had won that game, this wouldn't even been talked about. This is sour apples to me. This is, I don't know, it's just wild. So anyway, if it's good for the goose, it's good for the gander, right? If you're saying that Bill Belichick is not a first ballot Hall of Famer for that stuff, then you damn sure better not let Tom Brady get in first ballot. If you're saying that Bill Belichick's not a first ballot Hall of Famer because of this, I'll tell you another one. How about steroids? Anyone who's tested positive for steroids, Do you now hold them out? Do you hold anyone on that team out? Do you have to remove the ring, the Lombardi trophy for those said teams if they have players that tested positive for performance enhancers at any point in their career? It's obvious they were cheating. It's a slippery slope. That's why I said that. So I just responded in the chat too. I think it was Josh Martin. Josh Martin disagreed. And listen, respect your opinion, Josh. This isn't a shot at you. I won't read your comment. I don't want it to come across like I'm dunking. But I just said you better be ready to keep a whole bunch of others out, including Green Bay Packers. As Chewy just stated, they cheated by getting their hands on the 49ers openers. You guys remember that? Somebody had left the openers, the first 15 or 20 plays that were scripted against the Niners, right? They had found it in the back area or whatever, locker room area of the 49ers facility. And whoever it was that found it took it to the coaches, and they used that as information. Isn't that cheating? If we're going to be all noble and nobody's cheating across the league, right? Nobody's cheating across the league, then shouldn't the Packers be penalized for that? Shouldn't they have had to go, oh, hey, guys, we stumbled onto your 15 openers. We, just so you know we had them, you might want to change those. What are we doing here, right? I love that Chewy brought that up because Chewy was on that team. You know what I'm saying? So I a little bit of respect there for that. I talked about Aaron Rodgers. Here's the other thing too. Bill Polian, GM for the Colts, right? Do you guys know, and I said this in the chat, I said, ironically, the guy who led this charge against Belichick got caught popping in extra stadium noise. You guys remember that? Also, there were several other teams. I'll mention that in a second. But when it comes to, let's stick with Polian for a second. They basically got caught popping in extra noise into their stadium in Indianapolis. You've heard it over and over and over. Tom Brady and Peyton Manning joking about it. Peyton Manning has all but admitted that they did that, right? Because he laughs about it every time. That's against the rules as well. Does that mean that Peyton Manning's Super Bowl or Peyton Manning shouldn't have been voted in to the Hall of Fame? You see how there's only one guy kind of being penalized here? And it just so happens that one guy is hated by Bill Polian and Robert Kraft, which, by the way, Robert Kraft is up for Hall of Fame as well. If you guys haven't watched the documentary, I think it's called The Dynasty or whatever it is, go and watch it. And it's literally a hit piece by the Kraft family on Bill Belichick is what it is, to the point that the players hated it. The Patriot players, when they seen the final product, even people that were involved in it, I think it's called The Dynasty. Even the players that were involved in it were like, Dad, yeah, we didn't expect it to look like that. Because it was basically a hit piece out on him. So you've got Robert Kraft, who, by the way, Robert Kraft, he hasn't been perfect either. I think we would all agree. And didn't he benefit from the same championship? So why is he getting a pass, but Bill Belichick isn't? Belichick wasn't involved in Deflategate. That was Tom Brady, right? So if he wasn't involved, then he's getting penalized for that. Robert Kraft wasn't involved either. I don't think his old ass, hobbled into the bathroom and let the air out of the balls, right? So does he get a pass? Why does he get a pass? Does that mean he can't get in now? You're seeing now. That's my stance. Again, that's how I feel. Now, I said in terms of Spygate, it says spyware, but I meant Spygate. There were a minimum of 4 other teams who were doing the same thing, watching and filming practice. Y'all know that? That was widely. I think the Bears were one. I want to say the Packers were one, but I could be wrong. I think the Packers, it was mentioned that they had people watching, in the facility watching. Look at training camp every year. Why aren't fans allowed to film practice, right? Because they don't want that footage getting out. But the reality is there are people from NFL teams that go around and watch training camp practice of these teams that have open practices. That happens. But yet, Belichick, he's the only one that's going to be penalized. I don't know. It's just wild. It's really, really weird, really strange. So I just said that's a big old can of worms that you're going to open up, right? Another one too, Al Davis. If you guys don't know this, the drainage at the old Coliseum in Oakland, where the Raiders played back in the day, where they won all these championships, right? Where they were, I don't know how many they won, but they were a dominant team in the 70s. The drainage sucked at that stadium. So when it would rain, the field would get drenched, right? Al Davis would have the landscaping crew, right, the grounds crew or whatever, turn on the sprinklers the night before, flood the field so it's a sloppy mess to a certain extent where they knew they had to wear, taller, deeper cleats, deeper spikes, right? The Raiders did, and that would give them an advantage. Does that mean all the Raiders championships should be forfeited? Does that mean that Al Davis, John Madden, and all the Hall of Famers for the Raiders shouldn't have got in first ballot. Again, you got a different set of rules. The other, they would have the training staff put a cast. I can't remember the player's name, but I think there was multiple. There was definitely one that was known for it. He was a linebacker for the Raiders. They would have him put an extra hard cast on his arm so he could knock guys out. He could use it like he was like swinging a club. Like imagine you ever broke your arm and the cast you get. Imagine swinging that at players' helmets. They would do that to get a little bit of an advantage as well. So again, man, it's a slippery slope, and it's something that I probably sound like I'm a little more. What am I trying to say here? A little more passionate about this than I actually am. But it's mind-boggling though how people were just, nope, he's a cheater. Like he's the only one that cheated. So yeah. Again, if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying. That's been sports from day one. I mean, shout out to Beer Cheese Benny, who's got a NASCAR podcast now, and he's an avid, listener of Packernet podcast. Probably not this one as much, but he loves Packernet podcast. Calls in from time to time on there. It's called the NASHoles podcast, I think it is. So, back in the day, and I don't want to get too deep into this, so people are not tuning in to listen to NASCAR, but they used to put lead shot in the frame rails of the NASCAR cars so they would make weight, because you got to weigh the cars. And this is, gosh, we're trying to think, Mr. Boogity. What is his name? I can't believe it's escaping me right now. Waltrip, DW, Darrell Waltrip, called NASCAR Racing on Fox Forever. He was laughing about this on the Dale Jr. podcast, talking about this. And what they would do is they would fill lead shot into the frame rails of the car, and they would make weight. And then halfway through the race, he had a little lever that he would pull, and it would throw the lead shot out on the track. And now your car's lighter all of a sudden for the second half of the race. They used to do that all the time, right? That stuff goes on all throughout now. I mean, NASCAR has been, everybody's always trying to find an advantage there, right? Obviously, that was illegal. You're lying about the weight of the car. Does that mean anybody who ever did that in NASCAR shouldn't be in the NASCAR Hall of Fame? It's just, again, slippery slope, man. Slippery slope. That's just kind of a cross reference. The same thing with steroids, right? You've banned a certain number of people from Major League Baseball Hall of Fame. You know who I would ban if it were me? I would ban anybody at the top of Major League Baseball that allowed that crap. That allowed that crap to happen, rather than just, we're just going to ban the players. Who was the commissioner at the time? Who were the managers of the teams? Who were overseeing this stuff and allowing it to happen? Then all of a sudden, we're going to ban baseball players from the Hall of Fame. And don't get me started on Pete Rose. That is what it is. So anyway, it's a football podcast. I just think the parallels are really, really interesting there in that regard. Now let's go to the poll question. We asked everybody on X to vote over there. Looks like we got 70 votes on X. And then here in YouTube, we have 92 votes. So decent little sample size, almost to 100 on both of them. I'll put the X one up and we'll read. So we asked you, the fans, the listeners, the viewers. All right. Here is what we've got. Should Bill Belichick have been voted into the Hall of Fame on the first ballot? Once again, it was an extremely loud minority that was disagreeing that he should be in, because it's 95.7%, just jumped up to 95.8%. Thanks, Uncle Bill, who just voted on that. 95.8% yes, 4.2% no. So it's unanimous. Everybody thinks this is absolutely stupid that Bill Belichick didn't make it first ballot. Now let's go to the YouTube votes. 92 votes in here on YouTube. Same question. Should Bill Belichick have been voted into the Hall of Fame on the first ballot? 80% says yes. 20% says no. All right. So, man, if you took the average between the two, what would that put you? Settle, let's just call it 85%. 85% of our viewers think Bill Belichick should have been a first ballot Hall of Famer. Roughly 15% would say no if you took the two polls, obviously. So pretty wild, man. Pretty wild. Joseph in the chat says, yeah, I'm just going to pretend you said, where's it at? God, it's always so hard to find. Why is it so hard to find on here? It's been shuffled around so many times. Joseph said, I'm just going to pretend you said
65%.
65%. That's what we. So there you go. All right. I'm curious to know if you guys are watching this video back later. Let us know in the comments. How do you feel about the Bill Belichick situation? Should he be in? Should he not be in? I think everybody agrees he's going to get in. It's just, it was kind of weird that he didn't get on the first ballot. But let us know in the comments. What do you think about the Bill Belichick thing? Make sure you hit like, subscribe, click the bell icon so you don't miss out on any future live streams. All right, let's wrap the show up now with some super chats. Thank y'all so much for being patient. Looks like Mike Solder. Let's see, we got Mike Witt, Mike Z, and Solder in here. If you guys got any super chats, get them in now. We got to wrap up quick, okay? Thank y'all so much for the support. Mike Witt with the super says, my dream offseason, cut Gary, cut Jenkins, extend Watson. And I know it's not a need, but if the Vikings cut Aaron Jones, I'd love to see him on a one-year deal. Him with Jacobs would be awesome. I love the idea, Mike. I really do, man. I love Aaron Jones. That helmet right there is signed by Aaron Jones. I got all kinds of Aaron Jones memorabilia. I love Aaron Jones, one of my favorite Packers of all time. I think I wouldn't hate it. Let me put it that way. I would not hate that, Mike. I wouldn't. Don't take this the wrong way. But I don't think it's the right move. I personally think that, first of all, you got to see what you got Marshawn Lloyd if he stays healthy. If you're trying to sell me on a one-year minimal deal for Aaron Jones to come in and be the third running back, I don't hate that. I'd be okay with that. However, if you have a solid running back fall to you in the 4th or 5th round and you draft him and he goes into camp and you go, holy cow, this dude's a second coming of Amon Green, you don't want those progress stoppers on your roster, obviously. Now, it's highly unlikely you find a running back that effective, although Monunga, I don't know, you guys help me out in the chat. Put in the chat wherever Monunga was drafted at, but that's one that we had a little bit lower on our board, and he ended up, boom, he popped, right? So the thought of taking snaps away from someone like that, as opposed to, having Aaron Jones in-house, I think it would be a no from me, but a minimal deal, and you could cut him if you have a better option, I'd be okay with that, It's just, that feels a little dirty doing that. So maybe the Vikings cut Aaron Jones, they move on, we bring him in on a minimal deal, and then we'll make that decision in training camp. Maybe he would want to finish here. And who knows? Maybe you catch lightning in a bottle, and it is a great 1-2 punch. But I was pretty vocal last year, Mike, that in Minnesota, I felt like he was the second best running back on that team, personally. I didn't think he was the best. Now, we know he couldn't stay healthy, and that doesn't help, right? Mike with another super chat. Please don't want Belichick as a first ballot Hall of Famer. Oh, people, I'm sorry. People don't want Belichick as a first ballot Hall of Famer because he's a cheater. But yet OJ is still in the Hall. LOL. Got it. Yeah, that's the thing too. Is like OJ. Somebody posted a tweet saying, "I'm glad they didn't let Belichick in because this is basically the Hall of Fame is something special." I'm kind of paraphrasing, and he said we only let the upper, the high class people in. He was standing in front of OJ's bus. Obviously, he was being sarcastic. So yeah, anytime someone is allegedly involved with, and again, OJ was not proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt for the actual murders, right? But he was found guilty for being responsible for the murders. And I think that gets overlooked a lot. If you guys dig into that, I don't want this to turn into a O.J. Simpson conspiracy podcast here, but the facts of the case that don't get talked about by the mainstream media is really, really interesting. Like there was 2 different knife wounds. That was proven. A lot of people don't know that. On Ron Goldman alone, there was wounds that came from 2 different knives. And the original coroner that did the autopsy on both Nicole Brown Simpson and Ron Goldman, he was on the first day of whatever trial, his testimony or whatever, he said that, and they immediately removed him and he was removed from the case. So it's like, whoa, isn't that important? Whether OJ was involved or not, that's kind of important that there was 2 different knives used, right? Don't they go completely against one person? So anyway, but I'm with you, man. You got people like that in the Hall of Fame, but Belichick can't get in because he filmed somebody's practice. Wild to think about. Mike Z with the super, appreciate you, buddy. Says every team will and should take every opportunity to gain an advantage. It's lunacy that Bill Belichick is singled out. Every team is complicit, in my opinion. I agree, Mike, and I don't have a problem with teams trying to cheat. Hell, somebody pointed out, look what the Bears did to our bench warmers, right? Our bench heaters the other day. Are they going to get penalized for that? Well, no, they had nothing to do with it. Okay, gotcha. All right. Again, if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying. Down here we say if you ain't rubbing, you ain't racing, right? When you catch them, penalize them. And they did. That's the wild thing, too. They penalized the Patriots, right? As an organization, and they penalized Tom Brady. I think he got suspended and fined. But now we're going to go back and penalize the coach who evidently didn't even know about that in particular. They were penalized for Spygate as well. So, it's like you're penalizing them twice. Again, it's just a really bad look. I'm kind of glad it happened, to be honest with you. as weird as that sounds, because it shows how I don't know if corrupt's the right word, but just how bunch of a crybaby asses are running the Hall of Fame voting is what it is. It's like these guys cannot remove their emotions enough to make a vote on whether or not this guy should be in the Hall. John Madden said it best too. Coach Madden said the criteria of greatness is, can you tell the story without mentioning this person's name? If you can't tell the story of the topic without mentioning a person's name, then that's considered greatness, right? That's what I think of with the Hall of Fame. If you can't tell the story of the National Football League without mentioning this person's name, they should be in the Hall of Fame. How can you tell the story of the National Football League without the coach who's got the most Super Bowl wins? You know, that's wild. It's wild to think about. So anyway, appreciate you, Mike. H.E. Solder with the super chat says, be honest here. Bill was an ass to the media. Bingo. I know where you're going here. Payback is a biatch. He will get in next year. In a few years, no one will care about this. The no one will care about this, I disagree with Solder. Everything else I agree with. He will get in next year. The payback there with the media, and what he's referring to is Bill wasn't good with the media. And that what got talked about on Jen, Gabe, and Chewy this morning as well. And you know what, man? I love what the way they approached it was just like, it's not the media Hall of Fame. It's not the ass-kissing Hall of Fame. It's the Pro Football Hall of Fame. It's the Hall of Fame that tells you these were the greatest to do it, right? And again, keep that same energy with other players and coaches. All I got to say. So I think you make great points there, Solder. Appreciate you, buddy. Mike Witt with the super chat. I still think it's basically absurd that Mike Holmgren is still not in the Hall yet, but yet Bill Cowher is in already. The NFL Hall of Fame is a joke. That's a weird, like, interesting dynamic too, right? And, you know, I think Mike Holmgren deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. But does he deserve to be in the Hall of Fame before Bill Belichick? And now Bill Belichick gets pushed back a year, and it's like, it's just a weird dynamic. I personally don't like the whole waiting thing either. It's like, well, we can't put too many people in. Know what the criteria is, right? Know what it takes to get into the Hall of Fame. And everybody's got differing opinions on that. And that's why I like what Diana Rossini said. In a day of modern technology and analytics, you think we could just come up with, all right, remove the emotion of the vote and the media not liking Bill Belichick, not liking this person. Do they deserve to be in the Hall of Fame or not? You know? And again, I think O.J. Simpson deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. You know, previous conversation we just had maybe made it sound like I didn't think that. He deserves to be in the Hall. Have you guys watched O.J. Simpson when he was with Buffalo? I challenge everybody. Go watch the O.J. Simpson highlights. He deserves to be in the Hall of Fame for what he did playing in the National Football League. Everyone else can determine, you know, what he did outside of football and whether he was guilty or not guilty or this or that. Yeah, that stuff should matter. That should determine whether you like him as a person and a player. But the thought that, you know, even he maybe shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame because of that, I don't know, man. And there's something that was said earlier on Jen Game and Chewy as well, that the Major League Baseball Baseball Hall of Fame, right, in where's it at, Cooperstown, right? They have something special rules that you have to act a certain way. Like if you committed crimes or you did this or that would keep you out. They said the Pro Football Hall of Fame does not have that, some kind of ethnics thing, right? So again, now Bill Cowher, I think he deserves to be in the Hall of Fame, Mike. I don't think you're saying he shouldn't be in, but you're just saying, man, it's wild that he's in and Mike Holmgren's not in. And I can understand that. I get that, man. And I'd have to compare the resumes to form a strong opinion on either of those coaches. But Mike Witt with the super chat. My ultimate dream offseason would be having Micah ready for week 1, hopefully against the Bears on the first Monday night game of the year. That would be absolutely awesome, man. I think Micah will be ready week 1. That dude's a different breed. He's a different animal. You could just tell he's fired up to get back out there, and he's going to do everything in his power to be out there week 1. I would be very, very, very surprised if he's not out there week 1. And the main reason I believe that, forget that it's Micah for a second, but when he tore his ACL, it was significantly, what was it, like a month before Christian Watson tore his. Christian Watson came back November 1, right? So if it was 6 weeks before Christian Watson, I think he's got a better shot at being out there week 1. If he's not, I'm not going to panic. Get him back when he's ready. Don't get me wrong. Don't rush it back. But it's going to be hard for them to keep him off the field, I think. So appreciate the super chat. And again, thank everybody. Mike Solder, Mike Z, appreciate y'all for the extra support there, man. That's what keeps the lights on around here on PTA. That and joining our Patreon group over at patreon.com/Packer Fan Total Access. Appreciate it. All the new, the new members over there and everybody being involved in the process. It's been an absolute blast creating that community with you guys and gals. So with that being said, I'm out of here. The voice is cracking. It's going. Thank y'all so much. Let us know in the comments. What do you think? Is there something we should do different with the show? Is there something you maybe you like a little more than the other? You guys and gals are absolutely awesome for the feedback. Again, make sure you hit like, subscribe, click the bell icon so you don't miss out in the future. We will be back later today if news breaks, and we're going to have more draft talk. We're going to have more roster talk. Everything across the board. We got some prospect reports we need to put out there to everybody, so we'll get that squared away as well. So spin those laces, hit that like button. My name's Clayton. This is PTA. Go Pack, go.
There we go.
Yeah.
Bye, guys.